Many of you might know octopuses have 3 hearts and blue blood. But do you know why? And why an octopus's mind isn't just in its head? In the next few minutes, I'll show you how an animal with no bones became one of the ocean's smartest escape artists. Octopuses run a 3-pump system. 2 branchial hearts push oxygen-poor blood through the gills. Then 1 systemic heart sends oxygen-rich blood to the rest of the body. And that blue blood isn't a myth. Humans carry oxygen with iron-based hemoglobin, which is why our blood is red. Octopuses use copper-based hemocyanin instead, and that can make their blood look blue. Now, the body is weird, but the nervous system is weirder. Many say octopuses have 9 brains. That's not quite true as a real anatomical fact. An octopus has a central brain, but a huge amount of its nervous system is distributed into the arms. In fact, modern studies say about 60 to 70% of an octopus's neurons, and that's hundreds of millions of neurons, are in their arms. So each arm can do a lot of sensing and control on its own. These arms can do fast, local decision-making, gripping, exploring, and coordinating the suckers without the brain micromanaging every movement. The brain sets the goal, the arms handle the details. So, not that they have 9 separate brains, but still incredible. If the arms can explore on their own, what exactly are they sensing? Octopus suckers don't just grab. They taste what they touch. Researchers found specialized receptors in the suckers that let octopuses detect chemicals on surfaces, especially compounds that don't dissolve well in water. So when an octopus feels a rock or a crab, it's also sampling chemical information, like its arms are doing quality control. Now combine that sensing with skin that can change its entire appearance in a blink. Octopus skin is basically a biological screen. One type of skin cell, chromatophores, works like tiny pigment dots that open and close to create moving patterns. So the octopus can look like sand, rocks, or seaweed in seconds. Another type, iridophores, acts like reflective layers that shimmer and change how light bounces back, helping it mimic sparkly water, fish scales, or the glare on wet surfaces. And leucophores help by reflecting the colors and brightness around it. So if the background is pale, dark, or mottled, the octopus can blend in instead of standing out. So this isn't just changing color. It's changing pattern, contrast, and even the way light reflects, fast enough to confuse predators and hide in plain sight. And when hiding fails, the octopus does what it does best: escape. Octopuses have a fast escape move called jetting. They blast water out through a tube called a siphon, funnel, or, more scientifically, hyponyme, and shoot away. During strong jetting, the pressure inside their body can force their gills shut, so they can't breathe, and even cause their main heart to stop beating for the duration of the jet propulsion. That's one reason octopuses prefer slow movements and only jet in extreme situations. As you can see, during this process, they not only push water, but also release ink. The ink creates a dark, cloudy screen that visually blinds the predator, allowing the octopus to jet away unseen. The ink isn't just dark, it also contains chemicals, like tyrosinase, that temporarily blind the predator and completely disrupt its sense of smell and taste. This is especially effective against predators like sharks and moray eels that rely heavily on smell to hunt. Sometimes, the octopus mixes the ink with a lot of mucus. This makes the ink clump together into a solid-looking dark shape that is roughly the same size as the octopus. The predator attacks the dark blob of ink, thinking it is the octopus, while the real one escapes. Blue-ringed octopuses flash bright rings as a warning, and their bite can deliver tetrodotoxin, a potent neurotoxin. This toxin is connected to their saliva glands, basically the glands that make spit, and evidence suggests bacteria living there help produce the toxin. They're small, they're gorgeous, and they're a hard do not touch. Octopuses can actually walk on just 2 arms. This is called bipedal locomotion, a rare, stealthy movement where 2 arms act as legs while the other 6 wrap around their bodies to look like floating seaweed, or act as hands to carry a mobile home, like a seashell. Octopuses have no rigid skeleton. That lets them squeeze into insanely tight spaces. Aquariums describe them slipping through gaps that look impossible. So if you ever see an octopus near a tiny opening, assume it's an exit. The limiting factor is the beak. If the beak fits, the octopus can usually follow. And yes, you heard it correctly, the beak. It is the only hard part of an octopus's body. In fact, their beak is remarkably similar in shape and function to the parrot's beak. Here's the part that surprised researchers. Even their sleep looks intelligent. Octopuses show evidence of 2-stage sleep, a quiet stage, then short bursts of active sleep with body twitches and rapid skin pattern changes. Researchers also recorded brain activity linked to these shifts. Important note, this doesn't prove they dream the way humans do, but it does show a complex, structured sleep cycle in an invertebrate. Now, let's talk about how they see, because it creates a famous paradox. Most octopuses are considered colorblind in the normal sense. Many have a single visual pigment, yet they still match colors beautifully. Scientists are still debating how they pull that off. What they definitely have is strong polarization vision. They can detect the angle of polarized light with very high sensitivity, which can help with contrast, navigation, and spotting certain prey. Octopuses are also highly intelligent. In lab experiments, Octopus vulgaris learned to open closed jars to reach prey inside, and got faster with practice. In other studies, they learned to tell different shapes apart, like squares and rectangles, and remembered which one led to a reward. Researchers have even reported octopuses opening more difficult child-proof style jars after figuring out the trick. That means they don't just react, they can learn from experience and use that information later. In fact, some of them are a bit too smart. Abdipus species famously crawl right out of the ocean during low tide. They drag their bodies across dry rocks and sand to hunt crabs in isolated tide pools before slipping back into the ocean. If you ever heard that an octopus's penis detaches from it, it's almost true. Male octopuses use a highly specialized, modified arm to reproduce called the hectocotylus, not a mammal penis. Instead of normal suckers at the tip, it has a specialized groove for transferring packets of sperm called spermatophores. So, when it is time to mate, here is how the detaching part works in some open ocean species like the argonaut, paper nautilus, or the blanket octopus. Female argonauts weigh about 600 times more than their males, and for blanket octopuses, it's 40,000 times. Getting close to her is dangerous because she might eat him. That's called sexual cannibalism. To solve this problem, when a male gets close enough to a female, he whips his hectocotylus out and inserts it directly into the female's mantle cavity, or her special paper-thin shell. The arm then detaches from his body, and he swims away to die shortly after. Strange, right? But the coolest thing is that the arm doesn't die. Remember their decentralized nervous system? This is exactly where it plays out. The detached hectocotylus becomes fully autonomous and active inside the female. It crawls around on its own like a worm using its suckers, and searches her cavity for the perfect spot to park itself and release its sperm packets. Contrary to popular belief, there is currently no evidence that the Hectocotylus can swim through the open ocean to find a female. However, there is evidence that the Hectocotylus knows where the female's shell is and actively tries to reach it. In an experiment on a specimen found in the Strait of Messina, biologists placed a detached Hectocotylus in a seawater tray. When the female's empty shell was reintroduced to the water, the Hectocotylus immediately reacted. It navigated across the container and voluntarily crawled back inside the shell, tucking itself into the deepest part of the spiral, the apex. This indicates that the Hectocotylus isn't merely a passive vessel. It possesses a survival instinct to seek the safety of the female's brood case to protect its genetic material until fertilization. And here is a funny historical mistake to wrap your head around. When scientists in the 1800s first found one of these detached, squirming octopus arms inside a female octopus, they didn't know what it was. They actually thought it was a parasitic worm infecting her and named the worm Hectocotylus. They later realized it was actually the male's missing reproductive arm, but the name stuck. Almost all octopus species are semelparous. They reproduce once, then die. Two known exceptions are the lesser Pacific striped octopus and the larger Pacific striped octopus. In the semelparous species, after laying eggs, mothers stop feeding and slowly waste away. It's like a built-in end-of-life switch after reproduction. Scientists traced a lot of this to the optic glands, hormone-releasing glands near the eyes. These hormones basically tell the mother's body, focus on the eggs, care for them, guard them, stop eating, and shut the body down afterward. In lab experiments, removing them after spawning made mothers stop brooding, start eating again, and live much longer. Octopuses are so far the longest brooding animals on Earth ever recorded. While shallow water octopuses care for their eggs for 1 to 10 months, one deep-water octopus was once recorded brooding her eggs for almost 4.5 years. This species is called Granellodon boreopacifica, and one of them literally holds the Guinness World Record for it. The record was confirmed after scientists from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute observed the same female clinging to a wall 4,600 feet deep from May 2007 until September 2011. And that's 53 months, brooding her babies. Once they hatched, she died immediately after. The cold water of the deep slowed her metabolism, and that's how she survived that long without food. Which brings us to ethics. Octopuses are cephalopod mollusks, soft-bodied animals like cuttlefish and squid. And in several countries, they're legally recognized as capable of feeling pain and suffering. And that's why calling them just a mollusk completely misses what they are. A creature with 3 hearts, a living display for skin, and a mind distributed into 8 arms is not a simple animal. Respect animals. Respect nature. If you want to touch wild animals, don't. If you want to chase octopuses and see how they react, don't. They can get exhausted after jetting and will not be able to escape the predator if it approaches once you leave. The best advice is easy. Never interact with wildlife, and certainly don't eat it. Subscribe to my channel to learn more incredible facts.